How's it going, everybody? Marley Cross 316 back with another comic book flashback, and we are now looking at the Amazing Spider-Man issue number 41. This issue came out in October of 1966, and today, as you see on the cover, we have a brand new villain into the Spider-Man Rogue Gallery here. We have none other than the Rhino. The Rhino makes his classic appearance here. He is a classic villain. If you know anything about Spider-Man's villains, he is a classic villain. And so he makes his first appearance in this issue today. I'm so excited today to show you how we're going to look at how Rhino makes his appearance in this issue. As always, go ahead and give this video a like and then subscribe if you have not to this channel, as I review more stories just like this on this channel. So don't click away. We're about to look at an exciting story here today. The title of this story is The Horns of the Rhino. So we have pretty much a new era of Spider-Man. We've been introduced to a new era already with John Romita taking over the penciling here. And so as we look down below, we have Stan Lee writing this issue, John Romita, the artist. We have Mickey DeMeo, the inker, and Art Simek doing the lettering page. And so here's a few things that what we're going to see in this issue. We're going to see the return of Betty Brant into Peter Parker's life. We're also going to see the reappearance of J. Jonah Jameson's son, John Jameson. We haven't seen John Jameson since issue number 1, so we're going to see him. We're also going to see Spidey here, or going into action with the Rhino here for the very first time. And then also Peter Parker is going to purchase a brand new motorcycle in this issue. A lot of things happening here in this issue. So let's go ahead and get started. We start out this issue right here. We have Aunt May and her neighbor here. And they're both talking about how, her neighbor, who is May Watson here, she is telling Aunt May that her niece, Mary Jane, has got a new apartment and she's moved out, and she's invited Aunt May here to move in with her. And so Aunt May is excited for that little possibility, but she's also thinking about her nephew, Peter Parker. Who will look after Peter Parker? Who will look after poor Peter Parker? We've known for a long time how Aunt May always babies Peter Parker. She's just always, all the time, caring about him. So that's her main concern. She doesn't want to agree to her neighbor's deal until she finally gets Peter's say-so. So will Peter Parker receive that news from her? We'll find out later on. We also see right here, right off the bat, Peter Parker, he's very excited about making this purchase of this brand new bike. It looks very cool. The main reason why Peter Parker is getting this new bike is he's tired of having to change to Spider-Man all the time to get to places. He'd like to do it the normal way like other people and, drive a bicycle or ride something. So he's going to purchase this motorcycle. He has to get a credit reference. So he refers to J. Jonah Jameson to allow him to make the purchase. J. Jonah Jameson at first is like, bug off, don't bother me, look up Santa Claus if you want some help. But then he also thinks to himself, well, let me think a minute. If Peter Parker buys this motorcycle, he'll go into debt, then he'll have to work for me longer, and he'll have to work extra hard to get some news photos. So he agrees to being the credit reference. We also see within J. Jonah Jameson's office here, we have his son, John Jameson. He's just come back from another space mission, and he's going to pretty much give J. Jonah Jameson some news about his last mission. We also see how J. Jonah Jameson hates Spider-Man, and John Jameson, on the other hand, likes Spider-Man, and he actually looks up to Spider-Man because, as we recall from issue number 1, Spider-Man saved John Jameson from plummeting into the earth. And you can look at all that in issue number 1, how Spider-Man saved John Jameson from near death. But J. Jonah Jameson is having none of it. He still thinks that Spider-Man is a menace. There's a reason why Spider-Man hides with his face with a mask. He hates Spider-Man. There's just no way getting around it. But John Jameson is trying his best to just calm J. Jonah Jameson down because, I mean, there's just no way of getting into or reasoning with J. Jonah Jameson. There's just no way to allow him to see reason. So finally, John Jameson finally reveals what's been going on. He's been contacted by these space spores. They've made contact on him, and so he's had some tests run, and the doctors are saying nothing's going wrong with him. But he's had an extra protection around him because he is a prized possession, and these very weird space pores could prove something for the space race. Remember, at this time, the United States had not landed on the moon yet. It wasn't until 1969 that the United States landed on the moon. But we have other nations, as we know, the Cold War is going on at this time as well. We're in the Cold War era during this point in 1966. So Russia also wants to try to get John Jameson. And so this is why we have these guards here. They're going to try to protect him. Now, how does this all play into detail with the Rhino? Well, you're going to find out right here that the Rhino has been sent by other countries, probably Russia, to get and kidnap John Jameson. That's his main mission here. So we're introduced right here to the Rhino, and Rhino's main mission is to make it to New York, and nothing is going to get in his way, as we see right here. Bullets can't stop him. He has an uncanny ability of just dodging bullets with this thick hide of costume here. We just don't know exactly what this costume is made of, but it can surely dodge bullets. And I mean, he is just pretty much like a rampaging rhino. He's just like a real rhino. Nothing can really get past him. I mean, he's pretty indestructible here. And so Spider-Man is going to have his first fight here in a few minutes. I mean, can Spider-Man really stop this rampaging monster here? So we see the return of Betty Brant here. She finally comes back to New York after being gone for months. Peter Parker invites her to have some coffee. They try to make some small talk here, but the talk is just, I mean, as we see right here, it's just boring. I mean, they have a hard time trying to come up with conversation here. I mean, after all these long months, Peter Parker's finally realized that maybe it was for the best. I mean, it's just, there's nothing really in common now with Betty Brant and Peter Parker. And now we see Ned Leeds come on the scene, and Ned Leeds is just so excited to see Betty Brant. And so Peter Parker comes up with an excuse to leave. And I think Betty Brant is also pretty relieved to be interrupted by the boring conversation that they were having. And I'm pretty sure Ned Leeds and Betty Brant will probably get back together, as this issue pretty much shows right here. So Peter Parker's pretty glad about it, and he's just like, man, what did I ever see in her? And then they see on the news here that the Rhino is making a big rampage, and he's headed to New York City, so Peter Parker has to get ready for that big battle. He also sees J. Jonah Jameson walking out of the Daily Bugle with his son, and all these guards around him. So Peter Parker is pretty, like what's going on here? Why? He's pretty interested as to why John Jameson has all these guards around him. And then Peter Parker says thank you to J. Jonah Jameson for being a credit reference. So Peter Parker comes back to his house in Forest Hill. He has Aunt May just saying, "Hey, how are you doing?" And Peter Parker can notice that his Aunt May has something on his mind that she's not sharing. But so as we see, Aunt May does not tell Peter Parker what she had that conversation about with her neighbor. So Peter Parker tries to do some homework. He tries to work on his term paper. He has all these thoughts about picking up his new bike, about why John Jameson had agents around him. And he's talking about why can't he just get his new apartment soon. He's thinking about Betty Brant. A lot of things on his mind. We see the Rhino come, and he makes his way to New York City finally. We have the news report showing that the Rhino has finally made it to New York City's west side. So Peter Parker changes to Spider-Man here. And here we go. We're going to see the first fight with Spider-Man. And we see with Rhino. And so Rhino and Spider-Man going to fight for the first time here. We see the Rhino, he kidnaps John Jameson, and so we've learned real quick that the Rhino has been sent on a mission to kidnap John Jameson. And so finally we see right here Spider-Man and the Rhino, and this is just going to be a few pages right here. The next few pages are nothing but pure action, as we see right here, Rhino and Spider-Man. I mean, this is great fight scenes drawn by John Romita. I love this stuff right here. This is probably one of the best fight scenes I've seen in a long time in a Spider-Man comic. Just awesome stuff. Spider-Man puts up a valiant fight. I mean, it takes a long time. It takes a lot of effort to really bring down the Rhino. I mean, he's pretty unstoppable, as you see in these pages right here. I mean, he goes through telephone booths. I mean, he can smash these lampposts here. I mean, he's crazy. And so how in the world is Spider-Man going to be able to stop this guy? Well, Spider-Man uses his webbing. His webbing is still, he allows the Rhino run into brick walls. He even tries to tackle the Rhino. I mean, just awesome fight scenes, as you can see right here. I'll just let you see some of this stuff. And so Spider-Man finally, he allows the Rhino to pretty much plummet his head into the sidewalk, and that finally causes the Rhino to collapse. So the police come and they pretty much capture the Rhino and arrest him. And so the main thing is, how are they going to pretty much contain the Rhino when he comes to? That's the biggest threat now, is, they couldn't even take his suit off. So once the Rhino comes to out of his unconsciousness, what's going to happen next? Well, we're going to probably find that out next issue. You also see how John Jameson here is still thanking Spider-Man for saving him, but J. Jonah Jameson is having none of it. We see Peter Parker here. He finally buys the bike, and he shows it off to, as we see right here, Harry Osborn, Gwen Stacy, and Flash Thompson. And for the first time here, we see Peter Parker finally, he's like, man, what have I been missing out on? I mean, I've been thinking about Betty Brant so much that I've not really noticed Gwen Stacy. And so we see right here that Peter Parker is attracted to Gwen Stacy, and Gwen Stacy notices too. She notices how Peter Parker was looking at her, and she's pretty impressed by Peter Parker's bike as well. So we'll find more about how Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy's relationship will evolve here. We'll see how that fares. But another thing that we need to focus on is Mary Jane Watson. So as we see right here, Aunt May's neighbor here, May Watson, as we see right here, or Anna Watson. I've been saying May Watson. It's Anna Watson. She invites Peter and Aunt May to her house for dinner. And so they're going to go to her house for dinner, as it shows tomorrow that they're going to have dinner. And so that will be next issue. So next issue, we're going to finally meet Mary Jane Watson for the first time. Peter Parker's thinking, well, she's just nothing. She's probably not that good looking. But we're going to find out exactly how Peter Parker and Mary Jane meet next issue. That'll be pretty exciting as we see Mary Jane Watson for the first time ever. So I'm looking forward to that. Hope to see you there. And as always, keep reading comics.